with this national security bill or law that China passed and is going to implement on Hong Kong, a lot of things happen. I mean, there are a lot of moving parts, really, because as you were stating before, Hong Kong has this special status in the eyes of the United States as somewhat of an autonomous region. Even though it's still technically a part of China, in 1997, Hong Kong was sort of handed over by the British to the Chinese government. And since then, you've started seeing more and more crackdowns on, say, pro-democracy protesters, which we'll get into in a little bit. But first of all, does Hong Kong lose that status with this national security bill as sort of a global financial center and international business hub?
Yeah, I think only time will tell on that one, Siraj. But even if the status of Hong Kong as a global financial center and business hub remains in effect for some time, it will likely be a changed status, in my view. The Hong Kong of tomorrow may be different than the Hong Kong that we know of today. And while there are a huge number of challenges ahead for Hong Kong, there are several trends which actually may support the city over time, particularly for China. And I think it's important to draw attention to this, since it's really not something that your viewers or listeners may not be hearing about, right, from other sources as it concerns the situation in Hong Kong. So let's start with what some of those changed dynamics could look like as they concern China and Hong Kong. Well, first, with the US now considering restrictions on the listing of Chinese companies on US stock exchanges, recall that's something the president drew attention to in his same commentary about China and about Hong Kong. We could, and there's been some press reporting to indicate this, we could see some divergence of capital flows into, say, or listings of Chinese companies here in the US and perhaps elsewhere make their way into Hong Kong. So in essence, a divergence of capital flow to Hong Kong, and perhaps even potentially, Siraj, an expansion of sort of Chinese bank operations in Hong Kong. Importantly, too, we may actually also see Hong Kong's assimilation into what China refers to as the Greater Bay Area expedited. This is China's tech hub. When we think of the US Bay Area, we think of California Bay Area, the center of American technology and innovation. Well, the Greater Bay Area in China is actually quite akin to that. It's a home to about 70 million people. It includes Hong Kong, but it also includes other major cities nearby, like Shenzhen and Guangzhou. And one of China's ambitions for that region has always been to see greater integration around that region as the tech center for China. So some of these moves could actually expedite that assimilation. Ultimately, as we think about the status of a financial hub or a center, the large question mark remains, what will US and other foreign companies opt to do in the coming months and years ahead, right? That's the big determinant. Some may move to another location altogether, right? They may change their operations out of Hong Kong, should they choose to do so. Others may decide to integrate their Hong Kong operations and activity further into China, because as you and I have talked about, China being the second largest economy in the world, it's a major consumer market, right, for the United States. So therefore, again, what those companies opt to do, Siraj, will play a huge role in terms of its status as a hub.